Yes, and Mark Stanley from the Good Public.
Nice. You've still got four, haven't you?
Yes, we have one. Yes.
I'm just waiting for you to go live. We can choose.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting being held on the 12th of December 2023. I'd like to begin with the acknowledgement of the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land. City of Prospect acknowledges that we are on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And now the Council Pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you. Okay, item 2 on the agenda, on leave, we have Neil. Item 3, apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Tween Nguyen, and I believe Councillors Standard and Group will be with us shortly. Item number 4, declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest anyone would like to declare? Nil. Item number 5, confirmation of minutes. As a recommendation, do I have a mover? Councillor Nelson. I'd like to speak to minutes. No, I have a seconder. Councillor Trindwin, do you want to? Okay. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item number 6, public question time. Are there any questions from members of the public? Item number 7, petitions, Neil. Item number 8, deputations. We have deputation from Craig Burton, Mr. CEO. It says Neil here, but we have the deputation from Craig Burton, Mr. CEO of North Book Club. Craig, you've got 5 minutes, and then there'll be a time for questions from the elected members. You have to state his name. Could you just state your name and address for the
Craig Burton, CEO, North Adelaide Football Club.
Okay, time starts now. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Mayor Larwood and councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the North Adelaide Football Club tonight. Just quickly, a little bit about us. You may or may not know this. We were established back in 1893 as the North Adelaide Football Club. Prospect Oval's been the home of football for 100 years. It was 101 years actually last year. We played there in 1922 and celebrated our 100th anniversary there in May 2022. Our users include our own players across boys and girls from 13 to 18-year-olds to our men and women in our senior teams. We have schools, clubs, plus cricket, of course, and other community users using the Oval. We see approximately 40,000 people each year in either games, training, events, or community activities. Our club plays an important role in health and well-being, not only our players, but the wider community who enjoy watching their team play. Currently, we don't have enough room for our teams, let alone additional hirers from our zones, our clubs, our community groups in the area. One thing lighting enables is the ability to use these facilities for longer, especially during the months when the weather is suitable for night activity. It could be training, playing multiple games. We can't play more than 2 games in the winter months. In the summer months with daylight savings, we might get away with 4, but if we can extend that through to the end of May, we can then play 4 games and have our women and men's teams playing on the same ground. We can't hire out to schools after hours. Already schools use us for sports days during the year, but it would be a great option to be able to use it for a twilight event. But currently that's not possible. So the igniter for this lighting project was the state government securing AFL Gather Round. and the extension of a 3-year contract, which extends into next year, 25 and 26. It's given us the momentum to create and start this project with the aim of hosting a game, whether that be in 25 or 26. That will put Prospect on the national stage and provide economic and social benefits that could not be achieved in any other way. The only thing holding us back is lighting at a level which has been widely communicated to you all, and the cost to do this has also been clearly communicated. Just a little bit about our club's investment prior over the last couple of years. You may or may not know our club's invested from our own funds, less a state government grant, over $2 million in its facilities. This included the redeveloped pavilion, which I think you've all seen, accompanying kitchen and bar area. We're very grateful for the usage that council has provided in recent months. I think some of you were there just recently. We've got a gymnasium, a women's change room now, plus a video screen that was included in this work. So I'm sure you'll all agree that it's a significant investment that our club has put into this leased facility. We also continue to find ways to improve. We're looking at new goalposts going in at the moment. We've repainted our grandstand, our Legends room downstairs where our history area is. We're also building new interchange shelters, all designed to make the Oval compliant for an AFL game. And we thank the City of Prospect for their contribution to some of these areas. NRFC's own contribution to continually to upgrade the facilities is going to be around the $300,000 mark. But that last piece of the pie is lights. Without it, we are no chance at all to host AFL games. The current level is just bordering on being safe enough for training purposes. I can't put it any clearer. It's a non-negotiable for the AFL. It was interesting to read that the Norwood Payneham area benefited about $2.2 million from Gather Round last year. So from an economic development point of view, it does stack up. The land acquisition on Main North Road, I just threw this in as something to think about. I know it's in the planning stages at the moment, but wouldn't that be great if this site could complement a stadium that has night activities, especially with some retail tenancy in the mix? Just a thought. Anyway, the ask. On behalf of the North Adelaide Football Club, I ask you as the current custodians in your role as councillors to make the right decision based on this opportunity. It may never come to us again. We understand there are other projects, financial constraints that will have to be considered. However, I'm sure you'll agree that there comes a time when the best laid plans need revising due to the complex environment we all live in, and this is one of those. Picture this. Imagine walking or driving past the Oval in 5 years' time and looking up and saying, I did that. If it wasn't for me, these lights would not be there. And you know what? Those other projects probably got done just a bit later than first thought. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Any questions for Mr. Burton? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you, Craig, for that. Could you just refresh us with the, if I'm reading correctly in the papers provided to us, about the number of Lux light? Yes, the Lux lights, because it seemed it was a smaller number of Lux than what may be required for other opportunities.
Yeah, there's so the highest level of Lux for AFL televised games is 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at the top end, and I think the quotation is at that amount. There's various levels that drop down from that you can play sport in. It goes right down to, for training purposes, 200 or 300 Lux. And to get an exact price, you would have to go back to the people, manufacturers, to get that part.
Mm-hmm.
So there are various levels of light.
Yes. What was your preferred one? That's what I just needed reminder.
Look, our preferred one is to have the 1,500 Lux,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can create a big event with this opportunity that's only going to last for the next 3 years. It may never come back to Adelaide. It may be forgotten about. But that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Backer.
Yeah, I'm just cognizant that this is a confidential meeting, so I'm just trying to be careful with what I say. Yeah, so thank you for the presentation, and certainly we'll have discussions further. One of the things, irrespective of the numbers or whatever, when we're dealing with clubs, say private clubs, even though a lot of our local residents are involved, one of the things with, I guess, the pavilion, which I know that the Adelaide Football Club has heavily invested in, is a place for our community to go as far as bistro. Now, I'm aware that hasn't been operating recently. When we're asking our residents and ratepayers to fund something for a private club, they're kind of like, well, what's in it for me? So what is in it for the ratepayer as far as being able to access facilities at the North Adelaide Football Club?
So all ratepayers, no matter where they live, can access the facility for any events that they want to choose to run. We've had several over the last 2 months, been really busy with different community groups, not only from within this area, but outside. Blackfriars, Rosary use it quite a bit, and Nailsworth. We had North Point Toyota used it on Sunday because of the weather for their Christmas party. We tried to have a retail type setup with dinners and bistro and things. It didn't work. It didn't get the support of the local community, I guess, for one reason or other, whether that's through poor marketing or just competition in the area. The Oval is there to be used for functions. That's our key purpose. During the season, we'll open on a Thursday night while the football training's on, so there's an opportunity for anyone to walk in and have a meal. Outside of those hours, we're not going to try and compete with other businesses that are better set up for that.
Any other questions for Craig? I've got a question. So you talked, Craig, about increasing the amount of use of the Oval. Can the Oval stand more increased activity? We all know what the Centre Square looks like. Well, the old Centre Square looked like partway through winter. Is the new Centre Square going to be more robust from that perspective? And can you actually play more games on there without affecting the ground condition?
Yeah, a good question, Matt. There's a tipping point, and there always will be during certain periods. For instance, if we had this weather patterns for the last 4 days during the middle of winter, we probably wouldn't have been able to play too much there. But the Oval is very well drained. The new cricket pitch, yes, will enable a better surface. And I would be confident that we would be able to play quite a few more games than we already do. We certainly would be monitoring the condition of the Oval, but our Oval is one of the best ovals in the state during the winter period.
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Craig. If there's no further questions, thank you for your deputation, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
Item number 9 on the agenda, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Okay, that being the case, we'll move to item number 10 on the agenda, reports for decision. Item 10.1, Ovingham Pocket Park concept design and engagement summary. There's recommendations on page 4. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'd like to move this, and just one of the latest notes is that one of the groups that's very keen to be involved down there, Church of Greening, we'll be having discussions with sustainable communities to auspice the group. So they just wanted to make sure that council knew that that was happening. So that will enable them when Pocket Park gets passed over to council to have auspicing for insurance purposes and for their activities and their volunteers. We hope that will come about, but it's looking very favourable at the moment. Yes, I think it's a very good report, and although perhaps some of the community groups such as Churchill Greening would most probably have liked this actual report to have more of some of the activities that they were in. It does cover that, and that would mainly then there is room for some of their preferred activities with their consultation, with a council community grant, such as some form of a community garden, all that. So I'm fairly sure that we'll as a council, and our council staff will be quite pleased to be able to help facilitate that once we get to that position that we can. So I fully support this. It's again another great opportunity for us as a council to increase our very rare offerings of open space, and there's quite a bit going on in that area, I think, to support a lot of community and council aspirations.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trin Nguyen would like to speak to the motion.
Yes. So, yeah, fully support the motion, and that, yeah, we believe that Dick can do all the work, so that will be completed to be evident to us, and that we have to work with Church of Reading, to try to get as much of, the ideas implemented in a suitable way with the, concept plan that Wendy has designed already. So, yeah, Church of Reading have been very proactive in the space. So yeah, I can't wait to finally see that come to fruition, hopefully by the end of next year on stage.
Thank you, councillor Nguyen. Any further discussion? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions and clarifications just for the benefit of people who might watch it on video later. Point 5, it says supports a $20,000 budget being included for consideration as a component of the draft 2024-25 annual budget to, if approved, will assist with costs necessary to progress consideration for a community garden. That's not money for a community group to do a community garden. Is that for money for someone to employ someone internally to do that work? I wasn't quite clear. I can maybe through the
CEO.
Mr.
Yeah.
Valena, can you explain the basis behind point 5 of the recommendation?
Through the van. The $20,000 is effectively a budget bid that council staff would make for council to review and consider as part of the budget development. That $20,000 would go to effectively a council officer overseeing further design development as per point 6, and all those points A, B, C, D, E, and F are effectively funded through that $20,000. Concept of design development, further engagement with council with respect to the concept of design and how it integrates within the reserve that's been developed. A cost estimate and further governance review with respect to community gardens, a number of different governance options, and that we've looked to work with the Church of Reading Group, with the council for the motion, and with respect to an appropriate governance arrangement with respect to tenure. There would be a need to do further community consultation with respect to this, because
Yeah,
the community
absolutely.
has been consulted on a proposal that doesn't necessarily incorporate quarantining there of the future reserve for community garden. So that would be part of further reporting to come back through the council on this journey, and then effectively go out. So the $20,000 would be effective funding that process.
Yeah, which is great. Just a couple of more queries. Certainly the DIT report identified ball games as well. Now, I know there are other areas in the precinct where you can do ball games, but the DIT report, unfortunately, just dot pointed, you can actually give a weight to where the information was coming from. So it was more of a comment than anything. And just further to that, with the consultation with the community, I know one of the biggest things that the gardening group was looking at was saying using the natural flow as a way to terrace and water capture, whereas the DIT approach seems quite an engineering one, is to level it. I'm just wondering, is there time still for interested parties to discuss that direction? Or in voting tonight, are we sort of saying we'll just bulldoze the slope and
CEO.
Mr. Valena.
Through the chair, there will be a slope, a slight slope, and I don't know the percentage, I think it's 4%. Yeah, 120, 120. Yeah, so it's close to effectively a 4 to 5% slope. So if you imagine typically a road is a 3% slope, the crown coming through, to give you some sense of scale. So there would be a slope from effectively the east to west going into the swale. Probably obviously not to the extent that currently exists, and the intent is by the work that they're doing in terms of significant retaining walls in place does open up the usability of that area beyond just the community garden. So Could it be used to capture stormwater? Yes, of course it could. It's probably better, to be honest, in terms of the rate of runoff is going to be
Yes.
reduced in terms of scouring or otherwise. So there's nothing that prevents it from occurring in the future. If there was to be that permaculture with use of water directed into swales and as was proposed in their concept plan, that could still be reserved.
Okay, all right, that's good information. Thank you for your time.
Any further discussion? Just one point for me, item part 6.C, the governance arrangements are going to be critical to this working. It's fantastic that the group Churchill Greening has built such momentum around the idea. Hopefully they can continue to maintain that momentum for many years, such as what we've seen at the other Prospect Community Garden, which works really well. The worst thing would be for this to lose pace after a couple of years and sort of deteriorate into not much. So whatever that looks like is going to be critical to this working from my perspective. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Group.
That's okay, thank you, Mayor. Apologies for being late as well. I'll certainly support the motion. There's just two things I did want to say. One is just very similar to what the Mayor just said. I just want to make sure we've got good governance arrangements in place, because we could put a great deal of infrastructure on their side, and there's excitement now, but it might not always be excitement for something like community garden. So I think that's just something for us to consider down the track, but we just need to make sure that good governance is in place. The other thing is I'm really uncomfortable about, and then I'm broken record saying this, pre-committing money into a budget, because we just don't have, and apologies, all might be said before we did, but I don't like committing money into a future budget when we just don't know what that money is competing against. So I'll support it as it is, but just with my word of caution, I guess just my comments that while we support a budget being put in, it doesn't mean we're supporting the budget being met by council, because we just don't know what's in the budget next year. So that's my comment. Otherwise, very happy to support and great for it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Group. I'll now circle back to Councillor Barnett to sum up.
Yes, and I forgot to mention that many members of the Churchill Greening Group and with families, and that we're and I myself have joined up, and I think Councillor Twin as well, with the as volunteers, just another component of that governance thing, with the rail care, so the Department of Infrastructure, to look after Ovingham railway station. So we've already had a successful working bee there. So I think that you know, that governance and that you know, there is desire and proof that the community down there is keen to be have this considered favourably.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.2, appointment of East Waste Independent Chairperson. Recommendations on page 27. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'll move the recommendations before us.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
I've just spoken.
So both I missed it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Group, Deputy Mayor Group.
I concur with Councillor Barnett.
Robust debate. That's good, isn't it? Is there any further discussion on this item? That being the case, Councillor Bennett, I'm sure is looking forward to summing up.
Yes, very briefly. That's it.
Thank you for your briefest of summaries. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.3, Bayindi Kamunka quarterly update. Recommendations on page 31. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so it was a very interesting discussion, the last one that we had, and because we've had a change of some people involved. So I think it was quite a bit of discussion about, looking at the steering group conferences and trying to make it more workable and perhaps try and reduce some of the roadblocks that we seem to be having. Nothing insurmountable, and I think there was general agreement about paying the command steering group Ghana representatives to go that way. So I think that's, you know, we're just trying to really want to get on with things. So I commend the recommendations.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trinity Wynn would like to speak to the motion. Is there any further discussion on this item? If not, I'll circle back to councillor Barnett for a summary.
That's nothing further to add, except to support it.
Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 11 on the agenda, general business of an urgent item. Are there any items of general business that are considered urgent? Item 12 on the agenda, reports for information. Information reports can be resolved en bloc. Unless anyone would like to reserve either of those two items. Would anyone like to reserve item 12.1? Anyone like to reserve item 12.2? That being the case, I'm looking for a mover, councillor Green. Would like to speak to the motion. Oh, that's right. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Stanton. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 13 on the agenda, council member reports and briefings. Thank you, councillor Nelson, for your report and or briefing. Are there any other reports or briefings? Not, we'll move on to item 14, motions on notice. There's notice of motion forward by councillor Barnett. Membership of Baindi Kamunka Steering Group. Councillor Barnett, over to you.
Yes, so just find it. So we have the motion before us, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to involve Tim Aegis as per the motion, who's the new chair of the Ghana Yata Aboriginal Corporation, and he's also a new resident of the city of Prospect. And so, as the motion says, we would like to be able to invite Mr. Aegis to join us for 2 years. He will have a lot to offer to the group, and he gave a bit of background about himself. I didn't know, I asked if we could have a biography of him, and if I may ask, has that been received?
CEO, you were a part of being received. Ms. Taylor?
Through the mayor, no, Tim does not have a bio, but I offered to write him one so we can table that at the next meeting. But he was a director of Aboriginal Affairs under the New South Wales government. He's extremely experienced in policy administration in that area.
Yeah, so I look forward to that. And he seemed to be very, from my personal observations, a very wise person. And I think we would greatly benefit from having him on the steering committee. I commend the motion.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trinity Wynn would like to speak to the motion.
Yeah, so yes, we get to meet this at the last meeting, and yeah, he was very knowledgeable, and yeah, it was very useful having someone like that in the committee. So I definitely support having him join.
Thank you, councillor Wynn. Is there any further discussion on the item? If not, I'll head back to councillor Barnett for a summary.
No, further to that.
That being the case, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 14.2, notion of notice budget workshops, councillor Jason Nelson, recommendations on, for the motion on page 51. Over to you, councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Larwood. Yes, like to commend the motion to the chamber, please. As I've discussed with many in the past, I have found the budget workshops over the 3 weeks, made it quite difficult at times to recall previous budget items that could potentially be adjusted to allow other important decisions to be made, other considerations. I believe that by undertaking the budget process in 1 day, just allows us to review all 3 budgets together and make the required decisions with all the information available at once. I do thank the CEO for their advice, but I would consider that the staff involvement, whether it be over 6 hours on a Saturday or 6 hours over 3 Tuesday nights, would require the same staff hours and therefore the same overtime or time off in lieu. So I don't see actually any additional costs in moving this if we can do this on a Saturday when the library is open. So, I commend the motion to chamber, please.
Nelson. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Backer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, briefly. I understand that other councils already do this, so it is sort of the way that we can look at things holistically. I always love when we get motions to us by multiple departments, because at the end of the day, you know, things are great if they work together instead of in isolation. And I think sometimes the presentation and the way it's done is siloed. So I think opening up to a new way of doing things would be great. And the other thing is the accessibility. So it certainly allows a whole new grouping of people to attend if they want to on a Saturday to actually see the workings of council. Now, I'd have to check if these are public. I don't know if they were public in the past. Maybe it's a question through you, Chair.
So yeah,
The information.
So yes, the staff comment suggests again that the expectation would be these workshops would be open. to the public.
Yeah, great.
That have to be, unless there was some sort of training element to them. But really what we're talking about is conducting a long workshop on a weekend.
Yep.
So it's the same rules we apply.
Yep. Fantastic. So yeah, recommend the motion.
is there any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Greg.
Yeah, I did want to speak to this one, and apologies, Councillor Nelson, I'm going to speak against it because I don't agree with the motion. On the basis of a couple of things. One is that the iterative nature of the budget experience that I've had in the last 12 years being here, I've had 12, 13 budgets, has been that we ask a million questions that can't be answered on budget nights. When we're doing the workshop, they can't be answered on at the spot, which means we'll do something on a Saturday. We're still going to come back and talk about it. I will almost guarantee my house, there's no way we're going to get the whole budget home one day. I just don't think that's possible and don't think it's feasible. So I think that issue about having to come back and forth is not going to work Saturday. I think to Councillor Backer's point around accessibility, I'm not sure this increases accessibility. I just think it might change it a bit. So I think if anyone with any child who plays any sport, they're not coming here on a Saturday to watch us debate the budget. They're going to be out with kids playing sport. They're going to be doing other things because Saturdays are kind of family day or days that you spend with your partner, your loved ones, or your friends. And I don't think it's a great opportunity for people to say, I want to hear the budget conversation for 6 hours. The other issue is during the budget process, quite often there's one or two of us, or members who can't make a budget workshop. And so what that means is they kind of catch it up at the next one, or they'll read the notes and they'll catch it up and they can have their say, because often you get 2 bites of the cherry. If that Saturday happens to be a day where someone's away, they're on holidays, they have other family commitments they can't get out of, they miss the whole budget conversation, not just the whole thing. And I think that's problematic as well, and trying to promote a bit of flexible work-life balance in this organisation. There's, I think everyone around the table has commitments outside of council, and I think I'm not overly keen on giving up the whole Saturday and missing my kids' sport and missing time with my family when I've worked, 50 hours during the week. My preference is to keep it as it is. It's not to say that having new ideas aren't good ideas, and I think a lot of them are. This one I just don't think works. But I'll go back to my initial point. it's one of this process not being a one-off budget process is not one-off. They come and go. I know my own organisation, I did the same thing, Michael. It's not a one-off conversation before about budget. You go back, you research more, you come back, you kind of massage it a bit. I just can't see how maybe council would do this and something up. I can't see how that would happen in this environment without having either multiple Saturdays or still having to come back to a workshop after the Saturday session. So sorry to speak so strongly against it, but I can't see this working in a way that's meaningful. And I just think, as I said, if one person's on holidays or sick, then it's the whole budget discussion. I think that's one minute. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Stanton.
The only note that I'll have is that we have it on the Saturday, and we take staff time from the Tuesday nights and put it into the Saturday. My experience and my expectation will be that it'll be like digging in soft sand. We'll just fill that. We'll fill those Tuesday nights with other workshops, which will take up the staff time anyway. So it'll be an additive staff time rather than a moving from there to there. So I can see that the staff time will be increased. It just won't move from one place to another. I've got the expectation I'll probably be working on a Saturday anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett.
Yeah, well, even though I'm retired, I still have things to do, like staff and other elected members. My only concern would be in March, trying to find a time with all the festival activities and some of the others that some of us go to. Yeah, I just find that, I mean, I can see the desire to, have a full day and get it all done and not have all these what might be perceived as drips and drabs. But I think you can see now that the newer members have, had a full year and they had the strategic planning session and all that, I think there are benefits to having it the way we've had it before with the evening workshops. We've actually put aside Tuesdays, and so I think there's most probably more chance perhaps of getting all of us that need to be here together. So yeah, when I was trying to weigh up my minds, and I thank the council for having to go and trying to get another way of doing things. Yeah, I think at the moment I'm prepared, obviously prepared to listen to what others have to say on it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Any further discussion? Briefly from the chair, I think we could work around most of the points raised in the CEO's comments. My concern is similar to Deputy Mayor Groot's, and that is that it's an iterative process. I've been involved with 9 budget processes, and the last couple have been the best. I think we've got into a groove of how it works well compared to some of the previous years, where it hasn't worked quite as well. And just that concept of trying to deal with everything on the one day, when there's so many questions that get thrown up and so much research that has to be put in to the questions that come up, that I'm not quite sure it's a practical way of approaching. But I think most of the other points that the CEO has raised, I think we could work around most of those. If we have to make the time, we have to make the time, but that's just my comment. Back to you, Councillor Nelson, to sum up.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, look, I certainly appreciate the feedback from other councillors, taking everything on board. The idea of the motion was to bring some efficiencies through the budget process. I find it very inefficient, just based on my own experience. And it was through my research found that actually most other councils do it on a single weekend day, very, very successfully. So I still like to commend the motion to the council. I think we can find a lot of beneficial efficiencies, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever day it is. It's really just about combining those 3 days into one to bring some efficiencies to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Not carried. Okay, item number 15, questions with notice. There are no questions with notice.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't. No,
Mr. Chance, councillor.
I know.
There for you. So that's nil. Moving on to item 16, confidential items. Just going to